Okay. Hi, guys. Let's kind of go through the questions that you guys had.
Did you want to be the presenter? I see you had a message there.
Um, I, I think everybody can see me. Is that true?
Your face, yeah.
Yeah, that's all I need. I don't have anything
Okay.
to show them on the screen. Um, Bill had what I think is a really pertinent question for probably every not have recognized if you're going to be able to finish the year or not. But Bill's question was that he is just starting on 3-1, and Bill, I don't know when your school year ends. My school year ends May 20th is our last day. So, and for all of you who are like, that's not fair, we started the second week of August. So it's super fair. But so we will test the week prior to that with finals. So our curriculum will end there. So I have mapped out till the end. And I agree with Bill. At this point, I'm always like, where am I and what can I leave or not leave out? And so Bill's question was, what should he cut out, really, if he's in 3-1 right now? And so what remains is 3-2, which is fluids, and that's what Adam and I are going to talk about tonight. 3-3, which is the recycling sorter, marble sorter is what we all end up calling it because that's what it's always been called. 4-1 is probability and statistics, and then 4-2 is kinematics. And so those are the sections that are still out there. Adam and I were talking about what sounds like there's a nice Adam and I were talking about what you could leave out that would be okay. I think he and I both at this point have it pretty strict down just to get through. My recommendation would be 3-1-1 through 3-1-6 are all the practice sections for learning Robot C and the VEX hardware. I personally, if I am behind, and I am behind, don't do 3-1-7. And it's the small practice activities. Ultimately, Adam and I will talk to you about kind of the pros and cons of some of those activities. I skip those and go straight to 3-3, which is the marble sorter. So my thought would be, if you are really pressed for time, you could probably do the 3-1-7 activities in a week, week and a half, and not do the marble sorter this year. That will give your kids something to build and something to work with, but not have that component. I actually have students in the back there right now up at school, and 3 of them are working on their marble sorters right now, and they probably wish that I had been the choice for us.
Yeah.
But it becomes very consuming. Now, we are working on it like a day or two a week and continuing on. So we've already done fluids, and this week we're finishing up statistics and probability. And so that's happening while they continue to have evenings and like 1 or 2 days a week to work on the sorter. But so I would recommend that. So that's a quick. Adam and I both do 3-2 in a super slimmed down version, and that's that we go through the PowerPoints, we do the practice problems. I don't do any of the activities that go with that. 3-3 was the marble sorter. 4-1, I am pretty bare bones on 4-1. There's a relatively cool activity with candy statistics that I rarely get in. We do the statistics, we do the probability, and we do the 4-1-1 activity, and we don't do the candy statistics unless we have time. And that usually gets cut. I feel like my kids get the rest of what they need from just the 4-1-1 activity. They miss out on, I think, some super cool Excel stuff that I wish they knew better, but I got to make that trade somewhere. My kids will actually get their 4-2 build this week because they have a 3-day weekend. Monday is their professional development day. And so they're going to get that. And that build, the ballistic launcher, ping pong ball launcher, and I have them build it out of home stuff, not out of VEX. They build that all at home. We only really use 2 days of class time beyond the presentations. They have a day to bring it and test it, and then a day to compete with it. So that's kind of my stripped down version. And honestly, right now, I've got like plates, spinning plates, because we're working on marble sorter. We just did our fluids quiz. We're going to do stats right now. Next week we'll do a chapter 3 and review cumulative exam. And so I feel like that's as stripped down as you can go. Adam, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, most of those things you talked about cutting down are pretty good because especially when you get into the end, Unit 4 is not very in-depth. It's almost like when they were doing the curriculum, they realized, yeah, there's not much time left, but we still have this important component that needs to be around. A lot of the stuff from Unit 4 that gets into statistics, like when we talk about mean, median, mode, some basic Excel work, years ago it was never in IED, and then relatively recently started putting a lot of that stuff into IED, so it becomes a little bit redundant. So if your students are taking IED first and then coming to you, they should have that base knowledge. They wouldn't have gotten the probability stuff, so you can kind of skip over that little chunk if they already had it, move into the probability. And really I do the probability in about 1 day to present it, a day for the activity, maybe a day for wrap-up, so you can do it in 2 or 3 days. Now, granted, that's block schedule, so it doesn't take too long because it's not really super in-depth. It's more scratching the surface than anything. And really, sometimes I do that unit first, like that section first, so students can get experience with Excel and get into using Excel so they can use it throughout the school year, as opposed to like we get through the whole unit or the whole class and then we show them, hey, there's this great program that you could have created these great PowerPoints or great charts and things for your PowerPoints at the very end, and then we say, okay, now go away. So it almost seems like we miss a point. That if you are somebody that does Fisher Technics, which I know there's a couple of you out there, when we get into fluid power, there was a great activity that used to be part of the Fisher Technics stuff that is no longer part of the VEX stuff because it's an extra cost to get the kits. But for the most part, in the fluid power stuff, you can get away with doing the content and the problems if you have to. Again, I try to watch that I don't just do the content because it's good stuff, but it's not as exciting. When they get to apply, if we just taught programming, it's not that exciting. When they get to build something and drive it around or move it or, some sort of challenge, it makes it more exciting and it keeps the kids interested.
I don't know that Bill is with us. That was his question. Let me see here. Oh, hi, Bill. Yeah. Does anybody else have a question kind of related to that? What we'll do, and we're going to talk through. We're going to do 3-2 tonight. We'll talk through kind of Marble Sorter do's and don'ts, and we will talk through certainly statistics and probability and certainly the ballistics. So we've got, Adam, what do we say, like 3 more
4, including tonight, 4 meetings essentially.
Yeah. So we'll get you through that, and we'll probably need to spend some time talking about assessment and how to get set up for that and working through that as well. I think that answered that, but Bill, that's a great question, so thank you for asking that, because about now everybody wants to do that. And please understand, Project Lead the Way is well aware that the first year you teach this, it's not expected that you get all the way through the curriculum. My school was super concerned about being certified the first year and having really good scores, and so we did get through everything. But that's by no means Project Lead the Way's expectation as you move through, just finding parts, if nothing else, in a situation, especially if you guys have the summer training that everybody else can running with into this class. Okay. No greater good questions then? Okay. And Adam, you want to talk first?
317.
Oh, 317. Yeah. You want to talk about that?
All right, let me just share the screen here. One of these is the right one. So when you get through, Unit 3 is kind of a little bit interesting, and I don't do it exactly the way it's written, but we kind of have at the beginning, you're learning about what programming is and what the idea of nonlinear linear programming is, and the whole flow charting idea, and then our approach to it is using Robot C and the VEX components. So they go through and they learn about the different components, different basic things, control structures, that type of stuff, up to 316. Once they get done 316, then they're supposed to, following that activities, project, and problem-based learning, they're supposed to then get out of the activities and get into some sort of project. So in 317, they're really taking all that knowledge that they just learned and trying to apply it into some sort of challenge. So 317 gives them, I believe it's 7 different challenges, and they give you just this basic idea where, you know, here's the name of it, and here's what it should do. They like to put in this hardware level and software level as a suggestion, and quite often with this, you know, I'll choose, you know, whenever the groups get to this point, I always choose what the group's going to do. So if you have a group that is, you know, obviously they finish first and they're great and they've got a lot of experience, then you give them the hardest one. The elevator is one that I like to give to the students that I know are going to do well, because the elevator is it's really not that hard of a build. I try to make sure the students aren't really spending their time on the build. You know, they make something, it looks like an elevator, great, let's move on. Where I want them to focus is on the software level of things. So, you know, I have them build an elevator that goes 3 different levels, you know, and I said, all right, it's got to do this. Then they go ahead and do it. And then if they're good, usually they get it done pretty quickly. They show it to me and I say, okay, now you have to do this. And you can keep adding things. The elevator is something you could spend the entire semester on, just building it, programming it, making it do all the extra little bells and whistles that it's supposed to do. If you get into a group that's not as good, then, you know, you get up into here, the start, finish line, the soccer goal. You know, they're very relatively simple things. So if they're not good at a build, it's pretty easy. If they're still struggling with the software, it's not too intense for them. So I pick and choose.
The soccer goal for me, I hate the soccer goal.
Yeah, for this year it worked okay.
Every kid wants to do the soccer goal, and you have to just make some decisions about what is okay and what is not okay. So the concept behind it is kind of and I talked to them about the swim, Michael Phelps, and that swimming, the Olympic swimming that was like 100th of a second or 1,000th of a second or something. The United States won that relay, which is beyond human ability to say there was a winner. But because they had a touch plate and they could touch that and say, we're done, the United States won that gold. So, and that worked perfectly. But the soccer goal, if you are trying to design something that the goalie doesn't trigger it, or somebody running in the goal doesn't trigger it, or so you have to make some decisions on only the ball is going to go in, or because they want to use a sonar, they want to use to kind of do that. But then the question is, what if it's a goal, it's a corner kick, and everybody's lined up by the goal, and somebody walks into the goal, does it think that somebody scored? And so that one, kids always want to pick that one. I think it is hard to make it real. So you just got to make some decisions on what you will accept as being functional in that one, at least for me. It's one of them that it's one of my least favorite ones on there.
Yeah, it makes it a little bit difficult. Yeah, I like the the start-finish line's pretty good on the software level. If you take 2 tracks, and I usually have students use like 2 different marbles, and they have to have some sort of gate that releases them, and then some way of timing each one at the end, so which one actually crosses the finish line first, as well as timing what it was, and then seeing when the next one crosses the finish line and what the timing of that is. And that part for them is on the software side, it's pretty hard. The build is very basic. But it gives you the opportunity to go through, and if you were thinking about cutting out some of the other programming stuff, when it comes to that problem, you can very easily just take a couple of these and have your students run through. So typically what we do in the class, and what we do in the summertime, is we spread these out. We have everybody build at least one and program it, and then they trade. So then rather than having the students having to spend more time building the next one, they can just go to a different group and trade the project and then program that you know, thing to work. And one of the things that I like about that is they didn't build it, so they have to figure out how it works, where things are plugged in, you know, how to time everything out. So it gives them a little bit of problem solving right off the bat, so that they can, you know, give them a little bit more, you know, problem solving practice. Okay.
I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Do you know which of these problems require what sensors? So I'm in, I guess, 3.3 we did today. So 3.4 is coming, 3.5, 6, 7, they're coming. But I feel like I'm kind of limited by the sensors I have in my little box of goodies. So I've kind of pulled everything out of my system. It looks like I've got a sensor for a light. I've got an electromagnet. I've got just a handful of things. What kind of sensors do you need for each one of these? And do I either need to go get them if I don't already have them, or do I need to limit the project to something that I can already do?
Fisher Technic, the Can I Go Get Fisher Technic, those legit come from Germany. So I used to have to order Fisher Tech in the summer if I wanted them by March.
Could take a month, could take 2 months, yeah.
Right. But you can go to Radio Shack and get a motion sensor that'll plug in to something. I guess that's my question: is what kind of sensors do we need for these?
It really.
Can you get one to plug into your interface?
Pardon?
Can you get those to plug into your interface?
Well, for example, I went and got a bunch of buzzers, and you just hook up the buzzers to the little battery plugs, and the buzzer worked just fine. Again, I don't really know what other kind of sensors you need there. I'm kind of struggling with what's what, and the kids got so far, so, you know, we're turning on motors and turning off motors, but it didn't feel like there were a lot of sensors in my bag of tricks.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm not sure what sensors we need. That was my question, is what sensors do you need for these?
So, I mean, really each one comes down to an individual design. You know, if, you know, I guess the students are going to have to know what they have available to them and design it around that. You know, on the VEX side, we basically have different types of switches, you know, so being able to hit something or have something as like a limit switch run into it. We do have light sensors. I'm trying to think of another sensor. Oh, we have like potentiometers that they can use. So it's not really that many different types of sensors as far as providing feedback, but you know, each one would be a little bit different.
Can we just walk through one of the problems on how it gets done? Like one of the better ones that, like, if you were going to start out for the first year and instead of giving them 6 choices and then having 6 different things to grade, let's say you told everybody they would only do one. Which one would you pick, and what sensors would you need for it?
I'd pick elevator.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. Yeah, this would be the one I would choose just because the build's really not that difficult, and you could get away with, you know, a couple of switches to, like, you know, what I often have the students do is they build, you know, a track that moves just a plate up and down, and it has 3 or 4 or 5 different levels where the level's based off of a switch, or for us they have like a sonar sensor, and then based off of that build they just have to go through and build a program that's going to do what they want it to do.
Yeah, I used to do the elevator with Fisher Tech, and you've got those little black and red switches, and those will work really well to make that work. You've got those little light bulbs, and so you could have, you know, you could add characteristics like Adam was saying. You know, VEX folks, you can have LEDs. Like when it gets to level 1, 1 LED lights up. Level 2, 2 LEDs light up. Level 3, 3 LEDs light up. And you've got light bulbs in Fisher, and you have little red caps and green caps and little different color caps that go on those. Or you can just have 1 light light up, 2 lights light up, 3 lights light up. But if I was, elevator would be the one that I would go with, because I don't think the build consumes you And I think, like Adam said, when you get done and you met my base need, I can say, now I want it to, if the power goes out, I want it to go straight to the first floor. I mean, you can add all kinds of scenarios to it to keep the group that loves a challenge challenged. So, and then you can have a baseline. I just need it to go to 3 different floors. And so, so that I used to do that with Fisher all the time.
And then how does the elevator sense that it's at the second floor with the switch? I'm sorry, could you just explain that setup? How does it hit the switch?
Sure, you gotta have something that, like Adam was saying, a plate or something that moves along, and you've got different pieces of track that moves along, and you have worm gears and different things in Fisher Tech that VEX folks don't necessarily have. But it just slides along, and when it gets to, when it hits the switch, the value is 1, it knows it's at the second floor.
Okay.
And then the nice thing about those switches is it just drives by it. When it gets to the 3rd level switch, it hits the 3rd level switch, and knows it's at 3.
Okay, so they just line them up, and so that may be the thing. Instead of giving them 7, just give them 1. Thank you.
Yeah, it's nice. We've done these a number of times, so you kind of have an idea what you're looking for, and I usually give them a good, this is what it has to do. So even past this little paragraph, I'll talk to the group and say, this is what I want to see it do. When they get into like this cable winding mechanism, that can be taken pretty far too, but I want to come up to this machine and I want to be able to input the value. So they have to have switches where I can input the value of how much I want it to wind, and then they have to have a go. So it's really just focusing them in on what you're looking for.
Okay. Because I had talked to some students in one of my classes that had taken this from the teacher 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and they said that the marble sorter, it took them 8 weeks, and they said taking it apart took them 2 weeks. And you just take it there from here. He said that like unwinding and putting away all the wires and parts took 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's too much time. Disassembly should take 1 period.
Yeah, Fisher Tech took 1 day. VEX takes 2 or 3. VEX is a lot slower to take apart. But Fisher Tech, you scrape all that stuff off the plate. I miss that. I miss that time.
Yeah, the click together was nice.
Yeah, little Lego action.
Yeah.
But VEX certainly, I have to give over a class period to dismantle and put away VEX. Just because you're unscrewing so many things.
Yeah, I mean, when I'm doing that, and that brings us up to like the next discussion really, but like, I would go 317 and then I go right into that build. I kind of do the fluid power stuff, which is 3.2 after that build because, we don't use fluid power in it. So it kind of continues with this whole VEX robotics programming type stuff with it. And, when we do that, it takes about 2 weeks till, we introduce it. They go through the engineering design process. They build it, present it, and clean it up. It's about 2 weeks in a block schedule. So, I mean, you could easily figure 4 weeks or something to that effect.
And I was talking to Adam earlier. I go through 3.1, give them 3.3, and then they get like a solid week where we're going through the design process and doing all that. And then I'll go ahead and start 3.2, and they'll have like a day or 2 that week to work on their marble sorter, and then we'll keep going. So my kids are still working on their marble sorter. Their marble sorter is not due till May 5th. We've had our first progress check that their ultimate sorter is not due till May 5th, but during that time we'll have finished 3.2, we'll have finished 4.1, we'll have started 4.2. So my room has like 6 kids in it right now. It's 6:30 Kansas time, and so I told them that as long as they were quiet enough while I was doing this, they could come up and work. So I try and give them evening time, and they can come up and get a lot of stuff done. So that just, I don't do it all and say we're not going on until this is done.
Yeah.
So.
Cool. We got a document from a fellow coworker. See if I can find it now, which